Welcome to the Domain Name Wire podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Alleman, and this is episode number 600. Yes, it's a milestone episode for this podcast. If you do the math there, that means I've been hosting this show for about 12 years. I want to thank you all for listening. And I also want to thank the sponsors, not just of this podcast, but the Domain Name Wire website. Without the support of these sponsors, it would not be possible to keep Domain Name Wire running. So when you get a chance, reach out to one of these sponsors, try their services, thank them for supporting Domain Name Wire and the industry. And as a side note, I do have a couple sponsorship opportunities that have opened up. So if you are interested in advertising and reaching my audience, reach out to me at andrew@domainnamewire.com. Well, I'm really excited on this 600th episode for our guest. He's been on the show before, but we have a lot more to talk about this time. The deadline for applying for a top-level domain name was last Wednesday, and one company went really big. It's called Link Freedom Group, and while that might be a new name to you, the company actually announced its plans to apply for about 200 top-level domains back on episode number 525. Today, I'm talking to Vaughn Liley. He is the CEO of Link Freedom Group, and he explains the thought process the company went through when selecting its domains, the impact of the recent Web3 integration report, and what he expects to happen in the coming months. The company has listed hundreds of top-level domains that are on its application at its new website, lfg.link. All right, before we chat with Vaughn, let's hear a word from our sponsor this week. Our sponsor is Sav.com and its low-cost domain transfers. Transfer your domains to Sav and save. Right now, you can transfer .com domains for only $10.15 and .org domains for only $11.64. Plus, when it comes time for renewal, they offer great prices then. In fact, .com domain renewals are only $10.15 at Sav right now. That is below cost. Go to sav.com/DNW/transfer to start saving money on your domains. Again, that's sav.com/DNW/transfer. Let's chat about some news in the domain business from the past week before we chat with Vaughn. First up, of course, the big story is the closing of the new top-level domain name application window. It's the first time people could apply in 14 years. And ICANN announced that it received 1,600 new top-level domain applications, and 1,100 of them had alternate backup strings. These are strings that companies can switch to if they decide not to go forward with their original string. ICANN noted that the final number of applications won't be official until it receives payment for all the applications. At $227,000 a pop, ICANN will add about $360 million to its coffers in application fees if everyone wires that money to them. Of course, some of that money will go back as applicants drop out or lose their contingent sets, but I expect them to make a lot more money through contingent set auctions. Reveal Day is expected to be in the middle of October. That's when we'll find out what everyone applied for. Also last week, and related to top-level domains, a technical study group on gTLD integrations with alternative naming systems published its draft report. This rather hastily, last-minute organized group was looking into alternative namespaces, so alt roots, and if companies should be able to integrate those with ICANN roots, so real top-level domain names. This is really all about Web3 namespaces. A lot of organizations have created top-level domains on blockchain systems. And now the question is, what will that require technically to integrate a top-level domain with ICANN? And I have to say, it looks pretty complicated for Web3 companies, especially those that already have existing large namespaces in their alternate root blockchain domains. Bottom line is, if a blockchain registry exists that has lots of registrations, it's really going to handcuff them when it comes to launching a domain on the domain name system. There are a bunch of other questions around this too, and I chat with Vaughn a little bit about this in the interview. For example, Ethereum Name Service took a step recently because a DAO effectively controlled it. That's a decentralized autonomous organization. There's a real question about who owns the domain name, who would apply for a matching top-level domain. And so the Ethereum Name Service has a new entity, the ENS Foundation that the DAO created. I still have a lot of questions about this. They now have a legal entity that could apply for a top-level domain. And in fact, my understanding is they did apply for .ens. But I'm sure ICANN is going to dig into who ultimately controls this. In Ethereum name services case, the domains they've been offering before are .eth, ETH. They aren't able to apply for that domain name in the current round because it's a reserved name for Ethiopia. And this might actually play to their advantage by offering ENS. It's not an exact match, and they could potentially get around some of those issues involved with alternative namespaces that were identified in the report. This is going to be an interesting story to follow as we get through reveal day and see all the domains that these companies have applied for. And let's finish with some great news for domain investors who bid on domains at GoDaddy Auctions. They've opened up an updated Auctions API to all users. I know a lot of people have complained in the past that they get outbid by bots. Good news, now you can create your own bots to go in there and bid. Rather than, say, placing a $1,000 proxy bid before you head out the door to play pickleball, you could actually set up a bot to go in there and bid in slower increments. You can also buy closeout names the minute they hit the new lower price tiers. More details about that are in a post on Domain Name Wire on August 13th. All right, now let's chat with Vaughn. My guest this week is Vaughn Liley. He is the CEO of Link Freedom Group. Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Andrew. Pleasure to be back. And pleasure to be back on the 600th episode, I believe.
Yeah. It's a milestone episode. And I'm excited to have you on because we're recording this on Thursday, August 13th. And it's been a busy day for you. It's probably been a busy many days for you. But just this morning, you released your list of domains that are on your applications here, hundreds of top-level domains. And so I'm curious about the past few days. Was it just a matter of hitting submit, or have you guys been kind of debating, switching out strings to the very end?
I don't know. To be fair, I think we were pretty well organized ahead of time because this is something that we've been working on for almost 2 years. And we actually started submitting our applications on the 20th of July.
Okay.
We transmitted the money to ICANN well ahead of time because we're cognizant of the deadline for payment, which is 7 days after the close of the window. So we were all done, bar a couple of strings. We had a couple of strings that we were putting in there at the last minute, but it's been a bit of a monumental task. And the team around us, both staff and external resources, have just been outstanding. They've been truly outstanding. So we haven't really gotten ourselves in the situation where we're backed into that last day frenzy. We didn't want to be there. We wanted to be a bit more organized than that.
When you're doing this sort of volume, you can't do that. So.
Correct. It's worth noting that they're all generics in the application system. Is it a geo or whatever? So I think for us, because we are a single applicant, so it's Link Freedom Group. Obviously, LFG is the acronym. We had the opportunity to set up one organization, and then we could just basically put in the applied for strings. And then once those applied for strings have been submitted, the way the system worked, you could then actually submit a replacement string if you want to use that option post-reveal. But all in all, it's a non-trivial task, but I think we've acquitted ourselves quite well. It certainly did better than, it wasn't as tortuous as I thought it was going to be.
I want to understand here, last time I had you on, I introduced you as CEO of Nova Registry, and now you've created this new entity. Why did you spin up a new entity, and how did you come up with the name?
Well, just not to correct you, but I'm still general manager of Nova Registry.
Sure. Okay.
And so this is a new appointment for me. Yanni wanted me to step forward. He's been asking me for quite a while, and I've been reluctant to take that step, Andrew. And I think that in part is a little bit of almost imposter syndrome on my part, really. I'm like a working class hero kind of guy, you know.
From Manchester.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're faced with a situation where you're handling literally tens of millions of dollars of somebody else's money. And he's like, no, Vaughn, I've been with Yanni now on this project 5.5 years. And we just had a moment this morning before we made our announcement, literally 30 minutes before. And he said, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd want to take this journey with. You've been outstanding. I trust you. I don't worry about things. That's praise indeed coming from him because he's a self-professed micro manager. So, but Link Freedom Group. So Link is obviously a nod to our existing TLD. We actually do value freedom of choice. We think that that's a big part of our culture. And the G really signifies the group, because within the group, we have got Nova Registry. We have applied and we do have an ICANN accredited registrar, which is Zero.link. And we have filed an application to become a registry service provider. So the origins of this are obviously Link. We believe in freedom, and it's part of a group. Now, coincidentally, it just so happens that the acronym LFG is also a nod to the culture of the company.
Was it coincidental that LFG was the acronym, or did you start looking at this and you're like, wait a minute, we can make this LFG?
Well, we've also applied for .lfg.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think this really speaks to the essence, the culture of our business. We want to get on with things and we want to be agents of change. That is part of our mission.
And when choosing a registry name, I mean, for the most part, the end user doesn't even know what registry they're working with, right? They're going through a channel. It's more for the industry and for yourself and for partnerships and that sort of thing.
It is, and modesty would forbid me from telling you some of the other options that were on the table. And I just said, we can't do that. I think Link Freedom Group is I think it's a great name. It's a great 3-letter acronym. Hopefully we'll be successful in the application for the TLD. And I think it speaks to where we're at and where we're going and the velocity at which we intend to travel.
Before we get to talking about some of these individual names, on Monday, so by the time people are listening to this, a week ago, ICANN published a draft report from kind of a hastily organized, a quickly organized group to talk about integrating essentially Web3 with these top-level domains. What are your thoughts on this report, and what are some of the ramifications?
In truth, I haven't actually spent an awful lot of time looking at it, as you can imagine, just because we've been so preoccupied with the final submissions of the applications and the RSP application. And I find it very interesting, for example, if you look at somebody like Solana naming system, are pausing all registrations on the .sol namespace as of the 17th of August. I don't know if you've picked up on that. Because I think that this has got to get ironed out. And I think that the people that have been picked to be on that panel, some of them are obviously very highly qualified individuals, both technically and commercially. I think more of this story to be told because, and we would have liked to have been included in that, I have to tell you. We would have liked to have been included in it. For whatever reason, we weren't. And actually, thinking about it objectively now, I'm glad we weren't, just given the workload that we've got in front of us with all of these applications and the like, because I wouldn't want us to be co-opted into a solution we didn't agree with. And that's not to say I don't agree with the solution, just to be clear, but I think there's a danger in being on a committee that's coming up with some kind of a solution or standard, which clearly should have been done way ahead of time. This almost seems like a bit of a rearguard action. I'm glad we're not on the panel because I think they've got a difficult job. This is going to be tough to navigate. You've got ENS who've got their own namespace, but .eth, they can't apply for that, or they couldn't apply for it because it was on a restricted list, been the country code for Ethiopia, so they've now defaulted to .ens as I understand it. I think some of these people are in a bit of a jam, whereas at least we're not bound too tightly to it, although we would have preferred clarity ahead of time before we started submitting applications.
I think that you mentioned Solana pausing registrations, which I wasn't aware of, but I'm assuming part of that has to do with this draft report that came out, kind of said if you have an existing namespace that you want to integrate, you're going to have to, the domains need to be owned by the same people or entities, right?
Yep.
And so now all of a sudden you've got someone registered a great domain in .sol on whatever your network is, and this applies to unstoppable domains as well. They sold millions of names on some of these extensions, and it kind of handcuffs them, right?
Yeah, well, it does, because this is really, it revolves around rights protection mechanisms. So when we were thinking about submitting an RCEP,
that's a registry service. Basically getting permission to run a registry service.
Correct. And that wasn't a technical solution. that was more geared toward the governance of it. So lifecycle management, rights protection mechanisms. My understanding is that from the 17th of August, you can no longer register a .sol name. My understanding is that the foundation or SNS, I think the foundation have submitted an application for .sol, and that puts them at odds given that there is an existing namespace, albeit on Web3. And how are you going to cater to those rights protection mechanisms? And I just think it's potentially a mess. And I also have it on very good authority that they're actually going to start taking registrations under a different 3-letter acronym. So the parking registrations on .sol, they're going to introduce a different namespace, which they haven't applied for. And I'm presuming that they're going to try and offer people an opportunity to swap from one to the other. And I think they've got another issue as well in so much that they're applying under my understanding is they're going to be filing a community-based application. I think they're going to find themselves in a bit of a pinch here if they're not careful, because the whole thing's interrelated, right? So on this committee you've got that's been put together via ICANN, and I'm just actually, you've got representatives, I think, from ENS, Unstoppable, VeriSign,
PIR.
Identity Digital.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. And Don Ruiz from Orange Domains. Yeah.
Are any of your applications community priority applications?
No.
We've seen, and we saw this last time, we saw someone announce the other day they're trying to get community priority for .bitcoin. The net effect, actually last time, they were more successful than I thought, some of these, at least dragging out the process, and in some cases kind of winning that community priority evaluation. How do you think that'll play out this time?
It certainly wouldn't have been the approach that we would have taken. And we actually advocated to SNS that they shouldn't proceed with their application with a community application, because you have to actually achieve a certain score to prove community. And I think it's a bit of a stretch for some of these people to say that they have community support. I think that's yet to be determined. And I also think that there is another consideration, that some of these community-based TLDs, say, for example, with .XXX, if you remember back in the day, and Stu Lawley had introduced I4, that's now been deprecated. What really is the merit of a community application? I think just to net that out, the reason that some of these people are going down the community application, particularly if we look at the .sol example, is that they think that's going to give them some kind of advantage in the application process so that they don't end up in contention in an auction. And I think actually what's going to happen here, Andrew, if they do not reach the threshold of community, and I don't know whether or not they realize it or Solana realize it, if they don't reach the threshold for community, they're going to be in contention. They'll then end up going into auction, but they'll still be bound by the commitments that they've made under the community application. You've basically lost your commercial flexibility. Always like to come on and bring something of value, and we wish them well in the application. And it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, well, we'll see if there are multiple applications for that one.
I think I raised this on our last podcast. We jokingly said that there were more consultants than there were applicants. I really hope that some of these people have done their homework properly, and nothing focuses the mind when you're dealing with your own cash. This isn't venture capital. This is Yanni's money. We have spent an inordinate amount of time going back over the applicant guidebook. We've met with ICANN multiple times to make sure that we fully understand the implications of what we're doing. And I'm not sure that can be said for everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But we do wish all applicants well, genuinely, because we also think that competition is a very healthy thing too.
I mean, even last time, I think it was Google who applied for a couple domains that were forbidden. So it can happen, right?
It can happen. It can.
Yeah, for sure. Just one more thing on the Web3 side. I know ENS, just one of the challenges too, is if you're controlled by a DAO and the DAO controls the Web3 namespace, that creates some complexities. So we saw ENS create a new foundation. I don't know that it solves all of those complexities because the DAO still has some control, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, even in the application process. Forget when they have to submit their RSAP. Just before that, like who's actually who's making the decisions here, and who controls this extra namespace? Should they apply to integrate those?
That's a very interesting point, because when you went into the ICANN TAM system, which is in TLD application management system, you had to create an organization. And you also had to, if anybody was greater than a 15% shareholder, then they had to be specifically named in there. And if there was a qualifying parent entity or the ultimate beneficial owner in a DAO, how do you describe that?
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting one.
All right. So let's talk about some of these names here. You kind of bucketed them into, I guess, 5 different groups, maybe 6. So you have AI and tech.
Yes.
Crypto and Web3, commerce, lifestyle, culture, and infrastructure. So 6 categories here.
Yes, sir.
Did you think about categories first, or did you start coming up with names and then you're like, hey, these are kind of dividing out this way?
It was the latter.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but what we did think, we started out with a very, very, very large list of names, as you can well imagine.
Like how many?
Thousands. And then you have to distill that down and distill it down. So there's a curation process, right? Your sort of distillation to get down to a manageable number. And then as we started to sort of hone in on the list, we're like, okay, well, this is the list that we think we're going to go with. There were some commonalities in terms of, okay, well, we could actually put these into categories. So as you say, AI and tech, commerce, culture, crypto, Web3, lifestyle, web infrastructure, because we don't have to think about just today. We also have to think about the future. So how are you actually going to go and market those TLDs? In other words, we are a single TLD operator today. And then depending on how many applications we prevail in, we're going to turn into a portfolio operator. So because effectively we only had one child to feed at breakfast, which is .link, but we're going to have to decide which children we're going to feed. And in actual fact, part of the rationale behind categorizing these is to think about how we actually align our resources, hiring people, business development partnerships. So if somebody is, for example, very well versed in crypto and Web3, so we have a guy, Matt Holden, who's actually, that's his background, it makes total sense to say, effectively, that's like a business unit.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a vertical, if you will. Yeah.
Correct. So instead of trying to be master of all trades, a jack of all trades and master of none, we're trying to be a bit more thought out and structured. And I think we have to be like that. And then from a point of view of people looking at the list, particularly when people are coming to the new website, they're able to either look at the entire list or they're able to look at it based on categories.
Sure. And that website, just to mention, is lfg.link.
It is.
All right. Was that unregistered, or did you guys have to go out and buy it from someone?
We had to go out and buy it. And luckily for us, if you go and look at the Whois records, we actually bought it last week. And we were, again, a big nod, a nod to Matt Holden. Matt got the deal done. Had he not got the deal done, I think we would have been staring down the barrel of a couple of $100,000 to buy back that name, particularly in the context of today's announcement.
Yeah. Well, once the announcement goes out, it's like, oh, I've got them. So
scoundrels, these domainers, scoundrels.
I tell you, they're horrible. They're horrible. I don't think I should ask you what your favorites are, because you probably don't want to give that away, given that you're
personal or company favorites.
Okay, personal.
I've got a couple. I love NIL. I love merchandise. I think we've got some really good ones. We've got some really, really good ones. I don't know whether we should tease this out now, but we've also applied for .god. Don't know if you're going to talk about, is that for later in the conversation?
No. I mean, I think I actually wrote that down. one of the things I had is kind of notable. With that, is it still, I remember last time people could object based on...
Of course.
Yeah, same sort of thing this time.
Absolutely. And people, with the process, there is going to be a period where people can comment and object and whatnot. Of all the TLDs that we've applied for, they're all generics, but that particular one is one that we put some additional work into because we think it deserves the additional work and some additional safeguards around it because of the nature of it. But we're not looking at this from a secular perspective because in sort of modern culture and parlance, you could be a podcast god. And in actual fact, Andrew, you probably are.
It's kind of like guru.
No, exactly.
In fact, you have .pod and .podcast on your list.
Indeed, we do. And we think they're going to be really good as well. Because, and this is the whole point, right? So in terms of actually why the list as it is, this is a belief that we do hold dear, is that things have moved on in the last 14 years.
That is not a term people were looking at in 2012, that's for sure.
It certainly wasn't. And so the list that's been submitted is more coherent and relevant to the world in which we live today.
And there are names on here that I'm sure will be, I can't believe no one applied for .api last time. So I'm sure that'll be a competitive one. I've heard .hub thrown around as that was kind of one that surprisingly no one applied for last time. But you've got lots of tech-based domains here. You have some related to AI. I noticed you didn't apply for .agent, but you applied for .agentic. What's kind of the thinking there?
I just think that agent's going to be hotly contested. And one of the things that we also thought about was coming back to one of the early questions about alternate namespaces as well. We didn't go after the usual suspects. We didn't apply for crypto, for example, because we think that that's going to, quite honestly, we think it's going to be more trouble than it's worth.
Because of the cost or like the contention set or other issues?
Both.
Yeah.
Cost and just because you've got an existing namespace and how's that going to work out? Particularly if the people that run the existing namespace do not prevail in the application, they're going to have maybe quite a few disgruntled registrants who want to sort things out.
But you have others on here that their namespace is for, right? Like .nft, I think someone's created that. I'm sure .token.
Yeah, but with agent, because of the amount of cash that is flowing into AI, it's just like, listen.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I'm just thinking about alternative namespaces and...
Well, but because it's a compounding effect, right? So is it an existing namespace? And how hotly contested is the auction going to be? And some of them, it's just like, if you've got no intention of going all in, because this is the other thing as well, if you have an allocated budget for the auction, it's a bit like, I don't know if you ever got spending money when you were a kid. Your parents may have given you some pocket money, some spending money, particularly with the summer holidays, and you spend all of it in the first day on your holiday, and then you got nothing left for the rest of the holiday, right? So I can well imagine that some people come to the auctions, overspend early, and then that's it. And we are looking for a balanced portfolio because, and I think we have said this, we've certainly said it to you, I think privately, say it publicly, this is a 10 to a 20-year investment. Yanni's dead set on that. This is a long-term investment. He could have probably taken the capital and used it in other places for a quicker return, but we actually believe in the namespace and we think it works very well as long as you can take a long-term view on it. We're not under pressure from private equity firms or investors at this particular point in time, so we're happy to see how this all unfolds.
Talk to me about these repeating letter domains, right? You have like .ddd, .ccc. What's the thinking behind those?
It was just thinking about how people might in the future just want, there is no meaning behind it. So it's not like, it's some kind of cipher or code. It's like, well, yeah, we can see people typing that in.
It's easy to type, right? It's the same letter.
Easy to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that you do know, I'm sure, Yanni is a sort of part-time data scientist in the way that he deals with his portfolio. So he looks at things very, very closely. And then you'll see, for example, we've submitted an application for QWE. I don't know if you've seen that on the list.
I didn't notice that one. Tell me about that.
So that is short for QWERTY.
Oh, yeah, look at that. 1, 2, 3, right on the keyboard.
There you go. So these are like hidden gems. But in order to, you have to be open to seeing it, right? Because in this particular industry, then everybody's com is king. That used to be true, but that not necessarily true going forward. We'll wait and see. I think over time, and it's already happening, some of the TLDs from the last round have been widely adopted. And we think going forward, some new TLDs will be widely adopted as well.
All right. So whose idea was .fart?
I'm going to throw him under the bus right now and just say Yanni.
Oh, there are a lot of fun ones on here, like .omg, like .goat in here. You've got, let's see, .fab, .alpha.
Let's take GOAT as an example.
Sure.
Right? And I think this is a nod to the shift in the world in which we live. So go back to 2012. A goat was an animal chased round the hillside by a shepherd, by and large. If you say to somebody today, goat, they automatically default to greatest of all time. We've just had the World Cup. There's a big debate. Who's the greatest of all time? Is it Haaland? Is it Messi? Is it Ronaldo? The actual word now has changed in terms of how people perceive it in their mind.
LFG was something that became very popular in crypto, right? And Web3 circles. Yeah.
That's really good because it's expressive without being too explicit. It's the sort of thing you can say at the dinner table with grandma without causing offense.
But we won't spell it out here on the podcast so I can keep my G rating. But yeah. Were there any others that maybe you decided against, either for competitive reasons or you just kind of at the last minute, you're like, is this commercially viable?
Yes. Then there were quite a lot of those that in the end, and it wasn't for a lack of capital either. We said it eventually you almost have to just draw the line somewhere. And I said to Yanni, because he kept pinging me going, I've got this idea. And I'm like, look, why don't we just draw the line now and say, okay, we're done. I think if I'd have let him keep going, he might have kept going with a few more, to be honest, because he's not risk averse. He's got his beliefs and he'll back it. But I said to Yanni, maybe there'll be some assets available for us in the market to acquire from the last round. And maybe there are some applicants in this round that might get to delegation and then not have the right setup to make it a success.
Sure. I mean, we saw that last time, right? I mean, XYZ acquired a lot more domains than they applied for originally.
Correct.
Radix and several others. So Identity Digital has been snapping them up. So there's a secondary market for top-level domains, not just second-level domains.
Correct. I just said to Yanni, let's be prudent. Let's not overdo it. I mean, it is a big number. Anyway.
Some people would say you've already overdone it.
It's a bit like Michael Caine, if you remember the Italian Job. You were only supposed to blow the doors off. I think we've certainly done that.
All right. So we're sitting here, middle of August.
Yes, sir.
You've disclosed your names, but ICANN hasn't disclosed. They're going to do that in a couple of months. So what's next for you?
We are going to get busy. So a couple of things. The way that the applicant guidebook is written, there is a prohibition on communication with other applicants starting from reveal day.
So October, a couple months from now, right?
Yeah. But between now and then, there is an opportunity if we wanted to, or if other people wanted to talk to us, then they could. And I think we wanted to be bold. We've never shied away from having an opinion. We wanted to plant our flag, stake in the ground, and have the courage of the conviction and say, this is what we've applied for. Because we do know that come middle of October, there is a prohibition on that communication. It can't be done. And you've got people like Ray, for example, with his Surface.
Early warning report, right?
Yeah, trying to push that. And we like Ray very, very much. He's a super nice guy and we count him as one of our friends. So in a way, this is almost like an early warning report. It's letting people know what we've applied for. And it's a little bit like, so I live in Malta. And of course, being an island, there's a lot of maritime activity. When the big ships come out of Grand Harbour, they sound the horn. That's basically a message to the little boats to be vigilant because a big boat's coming through and you don't want to get run over by it, right? So that's effectively what we're doing. We're sounding the horn on the way out of Grand Harbour.
So over the next 2 months, if anyone is interested in talking to Vaughn and team, do that.
The prohibition of communication, obviously we are cognizant of that. But in keeping with our ethos of business development, we're pretty sure that there is a cohort of would-be partners out there who are interested in talking to us ahead of time.
Since every domain is under one company name, I remember last time a lot of people did different companies so they could do partnerships, that sort of thing. Does that make that more complicated?
No, because we have no intention of selling any of them.
But if you had a partner come in, then it would just be like, hey, let's do it under our application kind of thing and then work out the details.
Well, absolutely, because as an existing registry operator, we now have our own registrar credentials.
Right.
We've submitted an application to become an RSP. We want to be able to offer people the opportunity to leverage the namespace without the complexities that are currently in the market with a concentration of. There are a few people that have a fairly concentration of influence, I think is the term.
So then October comes reveal day. That's like right before the ICANN meeting in Bali. So are you going to be in Bali?
No. So this is quite ironic, really, because of the way things have played out. So we just don't think it's appropriate. One, because it's on the wrong side of the world from our perspective. It's a long way to go. And if you do go, you can't talk to anybody because there's going to be a prohibition on communication.
Cocktail hour is going to be pretty quiet. Huh?
Well, and it's a bit like the World Cup. If you were caught talking behind your hand in the World Cup, you could get a red card. The amount of money that's on the table now in terms of an investment, we definitely do not want to run awry of the applicant guidebook. So one of the ways for us to be absolutely clean as a whistle on that is not to go to the meeting, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, it's almost like they should wait till the next week to release the list and avoid a lot of that. But
well, I don't think the actual reveal date is set in stone yet because it's going to be.
Well, that's true.
So as it stands at the moment, the reveal day is slated for middle of October. If the number of applications was a lot lower than expected, then they might be able to do reveal day before. And if it's a lot more, it'll be after. If reveal day is after Bali, then yes, we would go. But if it's before, then why would you go?
So then you've got to strategize around which domains do you stick with. You can go to these alternate strings that you have, your backup strings, decide which ones are going to be too hard to win, maybe. Maybe it's up against a big, huge company or with unlimited pocketbook, that sort of thing. So, and then auctions, and I mean, like, what feasibly is kind of the earliest we could start seeing some of your strings hit general availability?
Well, I think if there is no contention and there are no objections and everybody's, so let's just say there's no impediment to delegation. I don't think you're going to see anything until the end of 2027. Did you like the website, by the way?
Yeah, the website's really cool. You can add names you're interested in to kind of a watch list. You can reach out about partnerships and stuff, which would be a great way if you're interested in doing that, to reach out to Vaughn and team.
Because we're live and the announcement's been made today, we've got an embarrassment of riches in the inbox already. Messages from people asking if they can talk to us. So I think in that regard, yet again, because if you remember, we did announce Supernova 200 in Seattle, and our good friends at Identity Digital did throw that party at the Space Needle where we were sort of center of attention. So we must thank Matt for sponsoring the drinks and food. Yeah, your neighbor.
You were the prettiest girl at the dance.
Yeah. I think we are. And on the last podcast, I think he mentioned us at least 8 times. We were like, oh, we're starting to bloom into a very nice business partner.
So let me throw this out there for any other TLD applicants. If you would like to share your names, come talk to me. We can either do a podcast or post it on the site, and you can get some of these conversations going as well.
Absolutely. All business partners, and we mustn't forget in all of this, we wanted to tease this to the registrar community as well. We mustn't forget those people.
And one thing you've talked about before is the channel is important, the traditional channel, but there are also partnership opportunities with a lot of these, like you've done with .link, right? Which is
correct.
Getting these in front of the end users and different channels.
Correct.
So, all right. Well, Vaughn, busy week, exciting week, and exciting weeks ahead. So thanks for taking the time to come on the show this week.
You're welcome. And congratulations on the 600 podcast.
Thank you.
600.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
My guest this week has been Vaughn Liley. He is the CEO of Link Freedom Group. Again, check that out at lfg.link. When you're there, you can reach out if you're interested in talking to the team about any of their top-level domains. That's a wrap on this week's Domain Name Wire podcast. You can listen to all previous episodes at dnw.com/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.